Ayo! Hello, Fantastics. It's Mr.Clintastik, and I am here with a Strixhaven limited review. Yesterday, I reviewed white and blue. You can catch that on my YouTube and my Facebook, Mr. Clintastik. And today we're going to move into the black colors. So without further ado, let's jump right in. First we have Arrogant Poet. It's a 2-drop, 1 generic, 1 black, human warlock. Whenever it attacks, you may pay 2 life. If you do, it gains flying until end of turn. Okay, it's a 2/1. I guess it could be okay. It can get flying by paying life. And that's only if you need it to have flying. If you have this on the board and they have nothing to block with, you can just get in for free. But if they have any ground creatures, you can block with this. I mean, they can block it. It's a 2/1 for 2. What can you say? They can gain flying. I think it's pretty average. I'm going to give it a 3. I think you can at least play the card, and if you need to get in a last couple of points of life or damage, you pay life and finish them off. Next we have Baleful Mastery, a 4-drop, 3 generic, and a black instant. You may pay 1 generic and a black rather than pay this spell's mana cost. If the 1 generic and a black cost was paid, an opponent draws a card. Exile target creature or planeswalker. Okay, so I'm gonna automatically put this in like the 4 category, and it could be 4.5. And the reason I say that, it's an instant speed exile ability, and I'm already leaning towards white black really being powerful in this format. I like white black a lot, but we have a board wipe in white. In rare, it's not mythic or anything, and this is rare as well, and this exiles, and then we have the 3-drop in white that exiles tap creatures. So I think exile is going to be important, and I think that's very potent. How often are you going to let your opponent draw a card off this? Who knows? If it's an emergency, it might give you some value. Otherwise, you can just wait till you can pay 4 and then just exile the problem. So yeah, I'm giving this a 4 for now, and that could go up depending on the format. Next we have Brackish Trudge, a 3-drop, 2 generic, and a black fungus beast, uncommon. When it ETB's tapped, you can pay a generic and a black, return Brackish Trudge from your graveyard to your hand. Activate only if you gain life this turn. So I'm waiting to see my sacrifice outlets, because we're seeing some things. I think we saw something in blue yesterday that might have some sack value. Now if you have some sack value, I think this could be really good, especially if you're gaining life. And it's a 4/2 for 3, so you can definitely push in some damage, possibly trade, bring it back when you gain some life. I think this is really powerful. I'm gonna give it a 3.5, because you do have to trigger the life gain to get it back from the yard, but this could easily move up to a 4. This could be something that you want to see every game. It doesn't have flying, it doesn't have trample, but I think the recursiveness of it is really, really powerful to be a 4/2. So I'm gonna give it a 3.5 for now, and I really think this could go up to a 4. Next we have Callus, Blood Mage, 3-drop, 2 generic, and a black vampire warlock. When it ETBs, you choose 1. Create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token with, when this creature dies, you gain 1 life. Or you draw a card, you lose 1 life. Or exile target player's graveyard. It's a 2/1. and it's a rare. I kind of like it. To be a 3-drop 2/1, not the best on the curve, but when the ETBs you do get to pick one of those abilities, which is pretty potent. I'm already leaning towards like a 3.5. It's just really easy to deal with, but if you have a way to bounce this for value, you know, like I said, if there's graveyard interaction where you're sacking things off, bringing things back, I think that could be really powerful, and that could bump this up to a 4 as well. But right now I'm just gonna keep it at 3.5. I think it's just a little bit above average. 3-drop 2/1 that potentially draws you a card. And I mean, what other cards do that, right? You have your 3-drop flyers in some formats that do that. Tome Raider, I think, 1/1 flyer that draws you a card. So, like I said, I think, you know, the versatility of this card is relevant. And for now, I'm just going to give this a 3.5. Next, we have Confront the Past. It is a black X lesson. Choose one. Return target planeswalker card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Remove twice X loyalty counters from target planeswalker and opponent controls. Okay, it's a gold rare lesson. And I think lessons are valuable in that you can have them in your board and go and grab them. I mean, and there was a recent rule change for best of one. For best of one, you can only have, I think, 7 cards in your sideboard now. With Strixhaven coming out, I guess to reduce the amount of lessons you have access to, because I assume lessons were going to be ridiculous in best of one. But getting back to the card, I think this card is pretty decent. It only interacts with walkers, so in limited this isn't going to be too great unless you have a walker, especially one you care about. So I think this is slightly above playable, a 2, and I think that could go up to a 3, being that it is a lesson that gives you value. And I mean, it can deal with an opponent's planeswalkers, but how often are they going to have walkers? So once again, I think this is playable. I think this is like a 2, but not something I'm looking to first pick or give too much consideration to immediately. Next we have Crushing Disappointment. 4-drop, 3 generic and a black instant. Each player loses 2 life. You draw 2 cards. Okay, I like this. I like this a lot, actually. I think this is a little above average, especially in black. It's instant speed, draw 2 cards, and it's instant speed. You and your opponent lose 2 life. And if you're in white-black, it looks like you're really going to be toying around with the lifelink mechanic, some life gain. Well, are you? How many life gain creatures did we really see yesterday? Huh. I don't want to speak too soon, but I would assume you're gaining a little bit of life dealing in white-black color scheme. So it might not hurt you as much as your opponent. And you get to draw 2 cards at instant speed. That's something you oftentimes see in blue. So I think this is a 3.5. And once again, depending on the format, it could go up to a 4. I wouldn't mind running at least 2 of these in my deck. You lose 4 life, but you need to account for that. Next we have Essence Infusion, a 2-drop, 1 generic and a black sorcery. Put 2 1/1 counters on target creature. It gains lifelink until end of turn. I wish this gave lifelink indefinitely. This would be just awesome. It's also just a sorcery. I think the card's good. You know, you put 2 1/1 counters on a creature. You can get blown out if they remove that creature, but you would get blown out anyways. I think it's just okay. They should have slapped the learn mechanic on it, and it would make it like a 3 for me. Average card, but as it stands, I think it's just a 2. Just slightly above playable. If you really need some more playables, you might add it, but not something I think will see a lot of play in limited. Next we have Iwitch, 1-drop, Ibat. An Ibat? Really? Okay. It has flying, 1/1, and when it dies, learn. So, if you watch me draft a lot, oh, excuse me, you're probably going to see me draft Iwitch a lot, or Iwitch. It's a 1-drop flyer that lets you learn, so I think that's going to allow you to play some lessons in your sideboard and get a lot of value out of Iwitch. And then if you're playing white-black, you could be aggressive. I didn't see any 1-drop 1/1 flyers in white, unfortunately. So if you're pairing black with white, you may be playing Iwitch yourself. And it doesn't give you any drawback. It's not like you have to mill a card like you had to do in Throne for your 1-drop black flyer. Now this is uncommon, so you're not going to have a bunch of them. But I think this card is pretty decent. I'm going to give it a 3.5. Just being a 1-drop 1/1 flyer with learn. That's better than, I think, what was it, blue that had the 0/2 flyer with Magecraft? That was not good. Next we have Flunk. 2-drop, 1 generic, and a black. Instant. Target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is 7 minus the number of cards in that creature's controller's hand. So if they have 5 cards in hand, you can play this for 2 and deal 2 to a creature. Well, -2 a creature. And if they have, if it's late in the game, they have hardly no cards in hand. You could -6 something. So, okay, I'm feeling it, and it's a neg ability, so they're not gonna get around it with indestructible or anything like that. This could see some standard play, actually. It's weird because it really depends on what your opponent has going on in their hand. I'm going to give this a 3. I'm not sure if this is a 3.5 yet. Or higher. It might take out a little creature early. It might take out a big creature late. There's a lot of mites going on here. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go on and give it a 3.5. I think it is slightly above average. It is going to deal with threats that you need to deal with. And if we're not going to have a lot of removal, this might just be necessary. It's just one of those you really have to be big brain with, in my opinion, and target the appropriate creatures with to get the maximum value. The artwork on here is really cool. Like, this is how I be feeling when I'm trying to learn how to video edit. Or like I'm writing articles for my other gig. Like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? But anyways, this is Go Blank. A 3-drop, 2 generic, and a black sorcery. Target player discards 2 cards, then exile all cards from that player's graveyard. This is another card I see seeing some standard play, actually. Like, there's a lot of graveyard shenanigans going on. And for 3 to make your opponent discard 2, so say on turn 1 you play like Duress or something, they discard a card. Turn 2 you play Croxa, your opponent discards a card. Next thing you know, you're playing Go Blank. That's 2 more cards. Crazy. In limited, I don't know. We don't have a lot of graveyard shenanigans going on, from what I can tell. I haven't seen a lot of return from the graveyard cards. But this is efficient if you're trying to be like a control deck. I think it's a 3. It's average. The exile all cards from the graveyard, I think it'd be relevant in other places, but not necessarily this format. Could be wrong, and that could go up in value, but right now I think it's just okay. In multiples I don't think I would even want it. That's why I'm not going to bump that any higher. Next we have Hunt for Specimens. 2-drop, 1 generic, and a black. Create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token with, when this creature dies you gain 1 life, and then you learn. So I'm really interested to see if pests are going to be able to make an appearance in standard. When I say I'm interested, I'm going to see how well I can make pests work in standard. But in limited, I'm not so sure you want to be playing with this. You can trigger Magecraft, and maybe there's a card with Magecraft that triggers this, like, well, that synergizes with this well. But off the top, just 2 mana for a 1/1 pest, not necessarily good. You get to learn, which is fine. But what if you don't have good learn cards? I mean, lesson cards. Right now, I'm going to put this at like a 2. I really want to give it a 2.5 because it's something that I might try to play with. And once again, if there's some way I can recur this from the yard, get more value, or if there's a pest deck lurking in limited, okay, this goes from a 2.5 to a 3. But right now, I'm just going to give it a 2.5, and that could drop to a 2, and it could be totally unplayable. But right now, I'm just going to give it a 2.5. Next we have Lash of Malice, a 1-drop black instant. Target creature gets +2, -2 until end of turn. Instant speed. I love this. So the 2-drop that negged for 7 minus what was in your opponent's hand, it was really kind of hard to gauge that. I gave it a 3.5 because it's a little bit above average in that it does deal with threats early and late. So it varies. So it might even go up in value. But Lash of Malice is one of those cards you always know what you're getting. And this is something that you can use offensively and defensively. You can get rid of their early game creatures by +2 and -2 in them for 1. That's insane. And then, you know, if it's late game, you need to drive in a little bit of extra damage. Your creature has 3 toughness. Boom. You're pumping it by 2. So I think this has a lot of versatility. I'm definitely going to give it a 3.5. Going to put it right there with the other card. And we're just going to see how it plays out in the format. I'd easily play 2 or 3 copies of this. This could go up to a highly playable card for me, like a 4. But we got to see kind of like how the format goes. Alright, next we have Leech Fanatic. 2-drop, 1 generic and a black. As long as it's your turn, Leech Fanatic has lifelink. Okay, so this is what you're gonna want to play. I'm gonna give this a 3.25. It's a 2-drop, 2/2 bear, so it's average, and it has lifelink on your turn, which makes it a little worse. If this was just a 2-drop, 2/2 lifelink, 3.5 easy. But only on your turn means it doesn't block well for you, and you're gonna have to try to be really offensive, which so far what we're seeing in white, I haven't made it to the green or red cards yet, but from what we're seeing in white black could be really aggressive. So they could have gave this Magecraft, right? It looked like they gave white all the Magecraft and maybe blue. But yeah, I like this card a lot. I'm gonna give it a 3.25. It's right above average, and something that if you're a black mage, you're definitely gonna want to run multiple copies, swing in, gain your life, do your shenanigans with crushing disappointment. All right, next we have Mage Hunter, a 4-drop, 3 generic and a black horror. Whenever an opponent casts or copies an instant or sorcery spell, they lose 1 life. It's a 3/4. Okay, Mage Hunter. I like the flavor. I like the flavor a lot. Uh-oh. So there's a lot of ways, well, I won't say a lot of ways, but there are ways to drain your opponents. This is one of them. Four-drop, 3/4. It doesn't have flying. It doesn't have death touch. I really just want to put this card at a 3 for me. it's just average in my opinion. It may trigger the one life, and maybe you can compose some kind of life loss deck where this will be relevant, which it will instantly go from a 3 to a 3.5 or better. But for now, just on its own, a 4 drop 3/4, just average, and honestly, it could be below average depending on how aggressive the format is. But I'm gonna pay it a little bit of respect and give it the average cost of 3. Next we have Mage Hunter's Onslaught. 4 drop, 2 generic, 2 black sorcery. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. Whenever a creature blocks this turn, its controller loses 1 life. So we're just talking about if it's possible for a life loss deck to occur. And this is one of them. You get to destroy one of their creatures, and then say you have a bunch of pests. Look, I'm guessing those are pests in the artwork there. You swing in, and even if you're losing a pest, you know, they're gonna lose a life. And I think you gain a life. I like this a lot. I'm gonna give it a 4. It's just a good, you know, removal spell with some extra value. In black, I think black's looking pretty good. Black's certainly looking better than blue in my opinion. Next we have Necrotic Fumes. 3 drop, 1 generic, 2 black, lesson. As an additional cost to cast this spell, exile a creature you control, exile target creature or planeswalker. Okay, so you could exile a pest, you could exile any little something they enchanted, any little nothing you need, and for 3, exile a creature or planeswalker. Now for 3, this can happen. We've had 3 drops that destroy cards. Trying to think. In black, did we have exile? I don't quite remember, but that's a lot of value, exiling especially. And the fact that this is a lesson that you can learn and go tutor this up, I think is really valuable. The fact that you have to exile one of your own creatures is a tiny setback. I'm gonna put this card at 3.5. Like, if you don't have any creatures on the board, it's not doing anything for you, but at the same time, it can do a lot for you. I think this is a little bit above average, and if you plan for it in your build, especially with it being a lesson, it definitely gets above average. 3.5 for me. You can learn and go get it right out of your board. Crazy. Next we have Novice Dissector, a 4 drop, 3 generic and a black creature troll warlock. Okay. neat artwork there. You can pay 1, sack another creature, put a 1/1 counter on target creature, activate only as a sorcery. It's a 3/3. A 4 drop 3/3. That gives you a sack outlet. Now, we haven't made it to red yet. So if red has ways to, like, cheap, efficient ways to gain control of creatures, this could be good. You could take their creature, swing in with their creature, get some value, and then sack it away. Otherwise, I think this is just okay. Not something I'm going to want to have multiples of, honestly. I'm going to give it a 3 out of respect. It's average. But it could go up to 3.25 or 3.5, depending on if we can get a sack deck going. But if the format is too aggressive, it's going to easily fall below 3. Next we have Onyx Loremage, a 4 drop, 2 generic, 2 black creature, human warlock. You can tap it, search your library for a card, put it into your graveyard, then shuffle. If it's an instant or sorcery card, put a 1/1 lore counter on Onyx Loremage. It's a 3/3. 4 drop 3/3 that puts instants and sorceries in your yard. Now, I don't recall a way in blue to get things back from the yard, instants and sorceries. And we haven't really seen it in black. So it would have to be in green or red. I don't know how much I really like this ability. Why I want to put my instants and sorceries in the graveyard is beyond me. And it's gold rare. That's frustrating. I think they kind of missed the mark on this card. This could have been cool. Like maybe you should have said like search your library for a instant and sorcery. Put one in your hand, one in the graveyard. Put a counter on it. I gotta give this like really a 2. This isn't really great to me. It's not even average. It's a 4-drop 3/3. That it can pump to a 4/4. Guess that's average. But you can't even do that instantly. I don't know. Let me give it a 2.5. I think that's a little below average, especially to be a rare card. That's kind of disrespectful. Next we have Plum the Forbidden, a 2-drop, 1 generic, 1 black instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may sacrifice 1 or more creatures. When you do, copy the spell for each creature sacrificed this way. You draw a card and you lose 1 life. I love this. Off the top, I really want to give this a 4. And that's probably being a little overzealous there. Just a little bit. Sack a creature, draw a card, lose a life. I'm going to give it a 3.5. That's a little above average to me. You can just kind of hold it up. You know, say your opponent tries to remove your creature. Boom. Hey, I'm going to sack it, draw a card, lose a life. If you have another little chump on the board, without having to pay extra mana, you can just sack the little chump in addition and draw an extra card. I think that's really powerful. And you can do that across the board. So that's why I wanted to give this a 4 right off the top. I'm gonna give this a 3.75 actually. I don't think it's necessarily a 4, but I think this has a lot of potential, a lot of versatility, or it could just, you know, make you lose the game. We shall see in the future. Next we have Poet's Quill, a 2-drop, 1 generic, 1 black equipment artifact. When it ETBs, you learn. That's really cool. That's really cool that it gets to learn when it ETBs. Equipped creature gets 1/1 and has lifelink, and you equip it for 2. I'll run 2 of these. It's rare. I think this is a 4. In this format, I think this is a 4. There's a lot of life loss abilities in this format, and I think you're gonna want that back, especially in black. And I'm not seeing a lot of natural life linkers, so I think this is gonna be an easy pickup. You slap it on your flyer, your big creature, or whatever, and start getting a lot of value, and you get to learn with it. I think this is all around great. I'd probably run up to 3 copies in my deck, really. I'm gonna give this a 4.5 actually. Poet's Quill is really good. Not sure if we'll even see it in standard, but I don't know. I might be playing it. Poet's Quill is amazing. Alright. Ooh. Miss Angelina Jolie herself. Don't strike me, YouTube. It's Professor Onyx, a 6-drop, 4 generic, 2 black planeswalker, Liliana. Has Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, each opponent loses 2 life. You gain 2 life. This is a 5. This is a 5 without anything else being said. +1, you lose 1 life. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put 1 in your hand, the rest in your graveyard. Okay, give you a little bit of card value. -3, each opponent sacks a creature with the greatest power among creatures that player controls. So I know this is a limited review, but This goes into Commander. Each opponent sacks a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. Oh my goodness, that's powerful. And then -8, each opponent may discard a card. If they don't, they lose 3 life. Repeat this process 6 more times. A closer, yes. So I'm sure black mages are just rejoicing right now over Professor Onyx. 5 loyalty costs, great artwork, great design, great passive ability. This is pretty neat. Instant pick if you open it up in limited, and you definitely want to play around it. Throw yourself together a little lifelink, life lost deck, and call it a day. Slam dunk, Professor Onyx. Next we have Professor's Warning, a 1-drop instant. Choose 1, put a 1/1 counter on target creature, or target creature gains indestructible until end of turn. We're not seeing a lot of Magecraft in black. We're seeing a lot of Magecraft in white and blue. So this could maybe you can make a blue-black deck. I haven't really considered that yet because I wasn't really impressed with blue. This card is not that great to me. It's not like the, was it a 2-drop in white that gives 2/2 and hexproof? That's freaking ridiculous. And I mean, this does have some versatility to it with the indestructible. But in all honesty, this should have been combined. Maybe you could have made it 2 mana, double the mana cost, put a 1/1 counter on a creature, it gains indestructible. So right now I'm going to put it at a 2.5. I think it's right below average. It's not really that great to me. But I'm sure someone's going to blow me out with it, with some kind of weird white-black Magecraft deck. That's why I say it's definitely playable, but just not too exciting. Next we have Promising Dust Mage, a 3-drop, 2 generic and a black human warlock. When it dies, if it had a 1/1 counter on it, draw a card. And it's a 2/3. Not too impressive. 3-drop, 2/3. When it dies, if it had a counter on it, draw a card. It could have just said when it died, draw a card. Like, these stipulations aren't impressive to me. I think this is a 2. You're not really going to want to run this unless you know you're running a counter deck. And even then, it seems like a lot of work in my opinion. I'm going to give it a 2. I think it is playable at least, but just above playable. Next we have Sedgemore Witch, 3-drop, 2 generic and a black human warlock with menace. Also has ward, pay 3 life whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls. Counter it unless that player pays 3 life. It also has Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token with, when this creature dies, you gain a life. I'm giving this card a 4. Actually, I'm going to give the card a 4.5. There's just so much value, especially for limited, packed into this 3-drop card here. 3-drop, 3/2 with menace, so it can swing in fairly well. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery, create a token. Who knows how many instants of sorcery you're going to have, but with the learn ability, the learn mechanic, you'll be able to go get instants and sorcery out of your sideboard, which adds to the amount of instants and sorceries, sorceries that you will have access to. And it has ward, so it's not easily targeted by your opponent. This is great. This is, if you see this is definitely a first pickable card. 4.5. It's not as good as Professor Onyx, or board wipe or whatnot, but it's a really good card. Next we have Spectre of the Fins, a 4-drop, 3 generic and a black Spectre. Has flying. You can pay 6, 5 generic and a black. Target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. It's a 2/3. I'm going to give this a 3.5. This is a way to close out games, and it really could be a 4. The mana cost is kind of but it is a 4-drop 2/3 flyer, so it's not just a 4-drop 2/3 ground troop. I really want to give this a 4. I'm going to give this a 3.75 here. Yeah, 3.75. It's not as good as what we just saw, but this is really, really good. I would probably run like 2 of these in my deck. It can swing in, deal damage. Also, it's not only dealing damage to them, it's also gaining you life, putting a gap in the game. I think Spectre Offense is amazing. I'm going to give it a 3.75 for now, and that might go up depending on the format. Next we have Tenacious Ink Caster, a 5-drop 4 generic and a black vampire warlock. When it ETBs, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. When a creature you control with 1/1 counter on it attacks, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. This is interesting. 5-drop 2/2 isn't good. Just throw that out there. 5-drop 2/2, and it's not even a flyer. It's not good. But it has game finishing potential. You compose your 1/1 counter deck, and you have counters on, let's say, 3 creatures. You slam this down. You can put a counter on another creature, or maybe one of your creatures that already got counters pumps it up. But either way, when you swing in, you're swinging in for 3 with your 3 creatures, and you're also draining them and gaining life. I'm gonna actually give this a 3.25. The stats are just horrible. They're absolutely atrocious. But I could see this actually slamming down and helping the black mage finish off a game. So I'm gonna give it a 3.25. Next we have Umbro Duke, a 3-drop, 2 generic and a black instant. Choose 1. Target player sacks a creature or walker, or create a 2/1 white and black inkling creature token with flying. Okay, I like this card. Instant 3.5 for me. It's above average. 3-drop. They have to sack a creature or walker, so if the board is clear, we'll only have one of these items on there. It's dead. And if you don't need to do that, you can create a 2/1 flyer at instant speed. A 2/1 flyer instant speed. That's really valuable to me. I'm gonna give this a 3.75 actually. This is really nice in my opinion. Black's looking pretty powerful, and I think it's gonna pair really, really well with white so far. But I haven't got to red. Maybe red's gonna give blue the juice it needs to be valuable. But I'm gonna give Umbro Duke a 3.75. And next we have Unwilling Ingredient, a 1-drop frog with menace. You can pay 3, 2 generic and a black, exile Unwilling Ingredient from your graveyard. You draw a card and you lose 1 life. Huh. Interesting card to evaluate for sure. 1-drop 1/1 with menace isn't horrible. With a added ability from the yard, I just don't like it. I just don't like it. 2 creatures blocks it, I'm sure, easily. Then you got to pay 3 to draw a card later. I'm gonna get this a 2.25. Maybe someone gets a couple of these, like Rakdos. We haven't seen red yet, so maybe black pairs well with red, giving this a lot more value. Actually, I'm just gonna give this a 2. I think this is just right above playable, if it's even playable. All right, that wraps up the black cards from Strixhaven, the mono black cards. Overall, I think there's a lot of power in black. You know, cards I like off the top: Baleful Mastery, I think that's first pickable. Crushing Disappointment, I think that's first pickable. Honestly, 2 cards, and you know, even though you're losing 2 life, your opponent's also losing 2 life. And if you compose your deck right, I think that could be really, really valuable. Flunk. I think Flunk's gonna see a lot of play. Lash of Malice. Oh yeah, that was good. Necrotic Fumes. Professor Onyx and Poet's Quill. Powerhouses right here. So yeah, I think Black has a lot of tools at their disposal. And you'll definitely see me playing Black as soon as the set is released. So yeah, I'm going to take a quick break and then I'm going to come back and we're going to start with the red spells. So you can stay tuned. If you enjoy my content, please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to help my channel grow in the future. Also helps me have the confidence to continue to produce these kind of videos and whatnot. So yeah, I'll be right back.